radio is broadcast on LSL Podcast Channel. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to the channel.
You're listening to The Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Broadcasting here in beautiful West Palm Beach at our affiliate 850 WFTL. And we have a lot on our plate, including news about your favorite car company that is helping China, Tesla. So we're going to talk about the latest on the slain soldier call that the left wants everyone to just focus on that. I'm not stepping into that trap because it's so obvious. So we'll get into the latest on that because the widow is now on television. She was with George Stephanopoulos today, and she is confirming what Frederica Wilson said about the call, namely that Donald Trump really didn't have much empathy. Donald Trump didn't know LaDavid's name, and that Donald Trump just basically doesn't care about the troops, didn't seem to care about the troops in this call. So the left wants us to stay on that. And the more I thought about this as I was heading down here last night, because we are going to have a great event today at the Kravis Center with the Forum Club of West Palm Beach for the Billionaire at the Barricades tour, I was thinking about how easy it is for all of us to follow the shiny object that the left wants us to follow. It's easy because it's what they serve up morning, noon, and night on cable news. If you tune into, well, most cable news, not Fox so much, but if you tune into MSNBC or CNN, you would think that the only thing happening is that a widow of a slain soldier is blaming Trump in some way for a lack of empathy or caring, and that Donald Trump just doesn't even know anybody's names. Donald Trump just is a commander-in-chief who just doesn't care about the well-being of his troops at all. That's what you would think if you tuned in, flipped on MSNBC, looked at the front page of the Washington Post or the New York Times. There's almost no positive coverage and even middle-of-the-road coverage about what's happening in the United States of America, our economy, our unemployment, our trade deficit, what's happening with the surge of Americans, I think, reinvigorating their own sense of civic pride and virtue because of their stance against what the NFL is still doing on the national anthem. I find all of that to be very positive. There's so much to smile about today in America. And yet there are a lot of people who make a lot of money on dividing us. And I was also thinking about this political newcomer, still, he's a newcomer, Donald Trump, who arrives at the White House, and the impeachment calls have already come. They almost started right after he gets elected. They're all had their heads spun around by the election. And the impeachment calls came almost immediately. And yet he kept himself, for the most part, with a few stumbles here and there. Everyone's going to stumble at the beginning. But he kept himself focused on what? I would say the vast middle class of this country. The people that I grew up with, and I'm of that group of Americans. That is who I am still. I don't care how successful you are. My gut and my heart is always going to be with the, quote, ordinary Americans, the average. I don't even like saying average. They're above average, frankly. You know who I think is average or below are the people who run the establishment and have run our country into the ground. I don't even like saying ordinary Americans, average Americans. The Americans. So Donald Trump has set about encouraging the policies and doing the regulatory work that needed to be done to free up our economy. And we're seeing this in many ways that, again, unless you're a really, really dedicated consumer of information, unless you really spend a lot of time poring through various websites, maybe it's LifeZette, maybe it's part of the Wall Street Journal. Maybe it's a little bit here and there in traditional media. You really have to look for it. You all find that the same deal? That it's really hard to find anything to smile about in the old media, the traditional media, which is why I think so many of them are struggling today. You still have a couple of papers of record, but the Washington Post has lost circulation. The New York Times still has a pretty decent circulation, but they've lost ad revenue. The Wall Street Journal is holding on. But I think it just gets so old for most people, and people are so tired of it. So I walked into the studio this morning, and I'm thinking, well, maybe we'll play some of The Widow, and we'll do that. We'll get to that later on. But we have major substantive issues that must be discussed and analyzed. And while we do all that, occasionally we're going to laugh. We're going to be inspired. We're going to ask more questions. We're going to demand answers. And all that is really good. All that's really positive. Andy McCarthy is going to stop by because he has more information for us on that sale of that interest in Uranium One, which happened, of course, during the Obama years while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. You want to talk about a potential for collusion. A collusion. The Russians sending millions of dollars to the Clinton Foundation while Uranium One, the Russian desire to buy 20% of our uranium interests, while that deal was pending? And you got your husband going over to Moscow getting $500,000 for a speech? Then you get millions coming to the Clinton Foundation? Anyone else find that a little odd? But I also see there's an aggressive lack of curiosity on the part of the resist Trump media on that story. Of course they're not going to talk about it. By the way, a very interesting piece. There are a couple of interesting pieces on the China Watch, which we're going to get into. One of them is related to Tesla, of course, the electric car company, the Elon Musk company, and their effort to have a larger, more effective foothold in China. It involves these things called, quote, free trade zones in China, moving plants from one part of China to Shanghai, what Tesla hopes to get out of that, and how this will affect America's trade imbalance, and whether this will ultimately benefit the Chinese effort to be the world-dominating force in electric car batteries. A lot of folks think that, electric cars are kind of, that's just a fad. No, it isn't. Electric cars are going to be, frankly, what all of us drive. Probably in the next 10 years, the old combustion engine vehicles will be, probably some of them will still be around, but the wave of the future is electric cars. And back to this dovetails into what I was talking about, the good news that's out there. Here's the title of the piece in the Journal. China pushes, and this is on page B4, China pushes domestic electric car batteries. Okay? And it's a power struggle between what China wants to do versus Japan and Korea, the rivals. By the way, not United States. We are not a manufacturer of electric car batteries. Think about that. That's the wave of the future, but we didn't think that was an important industry to push in our own country. Batteries have emerged as a critical front in China's campaign to be the global leader in electric vehicles. But foreign automakers and experts say it is rigging the market to favor domestic suppliers, meaning China's own suppliers. Taishan Lishan Battery Company in eastern China recently agreed to sell its battery packs to Kia Motors for the electric vehicles the South Korean company makes in China, and is now in talks to supply General Motors, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen AG, said the Chinese company. But that is largely because Tianjin Lishin has little foreign competition. So this is what we're setting up here. A communist regime is now going to, now does, but will further dominate the global marketplace for electric batteries, for vehicles. In August, this is where the good news comes in. This is where we have an actual trade representative who's representing American interests and is looking out for you. In August, U.S. Trade Rep Bob Lighthizer launched an investigation into whether Chinese policies are forcing U.S. companies to risk their proprietary technology to do business in China. Among other issues, Mr. Lighthizer is expected to examine Chinese rules requiring many foreign companies, including auto companies, to form local joint ventures to be allowed to operate in China, potentially jeopardizing their intellectual property. Now, this is what this means. By the way, we don't have this rule in the United States. China has it. So if you're an American company who's like, okay, I want to do business in China for an industry like this, China says, okay, we'll let you do it, but guess what? You have to team up with one of our companies. Well, what happens when you do that? Well, it's kind of smart for China, right? China's looking out for China. It's kind of smart for them. So China says, okay, you got to sign up with one of our companies. You got to do a partnership. What happens as a result? What happens as a result is we lose our intellectual property, our know-how, our intelligence, our scientific edge. Because why? Because the Chinese company is in partnership with us. When I say us, it's an American company. And then what happens? Well, China has much more control over the company because you have, China's China. They'll control a local company. Even if it's not a state-owned company, they'll control it. So these rules favor the local battery makers in China, and it's the clearest example yet of the Chinese auto market distortion. Now, we don't think of China as a big automobile manufacturing country yet, right? Guess what? They're on their way. China seeks to dominate every major industry in the world. Auto manufacturing, 3D printing, cornering the earth on rare earth materials. Obviously, they want to be the software engineers of the future. We still have the software engineering edge in our country, but for how long? They want to be the commercial jet aviation dominator. On every major manufacturing issue, in every area, China has a plan to dominate. And because of these stupid trade deals, where we have empowered China to do all this, they're on their way. They actually have something called the 2025 Initiative, which is a Chinese blueprint for domination of manufacturing at every level of global economic cooperation. This is what they want. I don't blame them for wanting to do this, but my question is, aren't you glad you have a president who finally has a U.S. trade representative who says, we're not going to do it this way anymore. We're actually going to, if we need to, slap reciprocal tariffs on your imports, and we're going to make it really unpleasant for your ventures coming into the United States. You want to do this to us? Then guess what? There's going to be a penalty to be paid. 855-40-LAW. I'm running late, but this is the type of substance that you need to hear. With all the white noise about Trump's phone calls and this and it's all of this is being done to get your eye off the prize. Trump is working. The rest of them are shirking. Stay with us. Don't go away. You've heard me go on and on about my favorite game. It's called Say Anything. That's because it's so much fun. You just sit around the table and you ask a question, and everyone who's playing just starts talking and laughing. Really, I'm not kidding. There's no complicated rules. It's basically just everyone sharing their opinions. Everyone in the family can play together because Say Anything is great for all ages. And when you play, you actually connect with people around the table in a fun way. I've learned so many things about my family just playing the game. I love it. It's called Say Anything, and it's the best party game that we've ever played. And it's a gift that brings the family together. So when you're out shopping, make sure to get Say Anything. It's the perfect gift for connecting with friends and family. We love it in the Ingraham household. We play it, and I know you're going to love it too. More importantly, everyone is going to have fun, and now's the time to get Say Anything. You can get it at Target or Toys R Us. Remember, I'm not just talking about being together in the same room. I mean talking and really connecting. So get Say Anything today. Pick it up at Target or at Toys R Us. You're listening to The Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. We're going to be joined by Andy McCarthy in just a moment. What the Clintons knew and what the Obamas knew in this bombshell uranium deal story that is being, for the most part, ignored by the old media. People thought it was just, this is just Bill going over there and giving speeches and kind of taking advantage of his wife being Secretary of State and so forth, but turns out there was a lot more going on. And as I've said before, most Americans who were asked the question, should we have facilitated in any way, frankly for any reason, Russia getting a hold of 20% of our uranium? I couldn't imagine more than a few percentage points of Americans would have said yes. But for some reason, the Obama administration not only gave it the green light, but also the Justice Department, this was under, I think, both Loretta Lynch and Eric Holder, they were part of this. And they ended up stopping the FBI informant from revealing the extent of the bribery and extortion that was going on in testimony before Congress. So for all of the left's upset that, oh, Congress isn't keeping Donald Trump in check and Congress isn't doing its constitutional duty to stop the abuses of this president, turns out that the Obama administration is, in fact, they're the ones who didn't want a undercover agent to be freed up to actually tell the story of how involved Russia was in securing this deal and using illegal means to do so. Now, I wonder why. I mean, they're all for transparency, and they supposedly love whistleblowers, and wonder why that was happening. During a presidential campaign. Just when it turned out they were trying to tag Russia on Donald Trump. It's like Buddha says, the finger is always pointed back at you. You're wagging your finger, it's usually pointed back at you. 855-40-LAURA. A week from today, the Ingraham angle launches on Fox News. Make sure to set your DVRs. 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, and you can figure other time zones. Coming up next, Andy McCarthy, more on this, and this China story gets better and better. Don't go away. Have you ever felt tricked or even deceived into buying something? Well, nothing is worse than being lied to by salesmen. And I know many of us have gone through this. It's a terrible feeling. And many timeshare owners know exactly what I'm feeling and what I'm saying. It's brutal. If you made a big mistake and you bought a timeshare you now regret, well, guess what? There's hope for you. I'm talking about resortrelease.com. It is a phenomenal business. It helps people who got stuck in a timeshare that, frankly, they might not even use that much anymore, and that, unfortunately, they see their maintenance fees go up year after year after year, and they just want out. Well, guess what? Resortrelease.com will help you. They'll legally and permanently help you end that contract with a timeshare you don't want anymore. They're Better Business Bureau accredited, A+ rated. They get the job done. Or guess what? You don't pay a dime. You don't pay a penny if they don't get you out of the timeshare. All you need to do is call them at 855-66-LAURA. That's 855-66-LAURA. Or just go to resortrelease.com and always use my name, Laura, and you'll see if you qualify. Again, 855-66-LAURA. President Trump on the uranium deal, and new information coming out now about how this whole thing went down and whether there really was collusion. Well, maybe between the Clintons, the Obamas, and Russia. Broadcasting here in beautiful West Palm Beach at our wonderful affiliate. Haven't been here in a few years. Great to be back. 850 WFTL. Great news talk station here in South Florida. And we're going to have a big Billionaire at the Barricades event, lunchtime, here at the Forum Club. It's all sold out. We're going to have a blast. Can't wait. A lot of Q&A, little talk, and a little book signing. Then fly home, get ready for the new Fox show, which launches 1 week from today. Make sure to get ready. No, you don't want to miss that first show. You got to DVR us, and then we can watch us anytime you want. So it's next Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And we were happy. Lisa and I were traveling yesterday to come down to Florida. We had a 2.5-hour delay, of course. JetBlue is a little bit of a delay. I'm not sure. I guess it was weather or something. And we noticed that my book was in the, I don't know, was it Hudson's bookseller or one of the booksellers at the Reagan airport. And so we actually signed them. I signed them. And we were sitting just waiting, so we had a lot of time. We had a long wait at the airport. And I signed them, and then we put them back on the shelf. And this woman comes up to me and she said, "Thank you for signing the book. I tried to find you in all of the I tried to find you in the airport." She comes and she runs up, and she was the nicest person. She just happened to be on our flight as well. Yeah. And she actually she had her book signed. It was fun. So it's very heartening to see people reading it on the plane. They get it now. People understand what the book is all about. It's a historical frame that we've put around this election, much needed. And Andy McCarthy joins us now. He's a columnist for National Review, former chief assistant U.S. attorney, and he's been following this Uranium One deal. Rich Lowry wrote a nice little blurb on my book for National Review last week. He's an old friend of mine, and I was just delighted to see that as well. And Andy joins us now. Andy, great to talk to you. How you doing, my friend?
Laura, I'm doing great. Sounds like you're doing great, too. Congratulations on the book and the show. That's terrific.
Oh, no, we're having fun out. It's just fun to be out of Washington and talking to real people and having real conversations and hearing what's on the mind of Americans. And it is quite stunning, Andy, that the old lamestream media will focus for days and days and days about a private phone call between the president and a widow, U.S. military widow, Gold Star wife. And yet this story, which you wrote a terrific piece about over the weekend, which I retweeted and I think retweeted again, it's so good, an aggressive lack of curiosity about a substantive issue involving corruption, bribes, kickbacks, Russia, the Obamas, and the Clintons. Tell us what you know.
Well, thanks so much, Laura. And it really is a studied effort by the mainstream media not to cover it after a year of telling us that nothing could be more important than collusion with the hostile regime in Moscow. It's really quite stunning how they've turned on the dime. But I think that, the bottom line is when the Obama administration greenlighted a very dubious transaction which enabled the Putin regime in Russia to acquire through its wholly owned or its state-owned energy company, Rosatom, to acquire 20% of the U.S. uranium stock. The Obama Justice Department had an active, prosecutable racketeering investigation against a subsidiary of Rosatom, that is the American arm of this Russian government-controlled company that was trying to expand Putin's energy interest in the United States. The Justice Department had a racketeering case that it could easily have prosecuted at that point, but did not bring the case under circumstances where bringing it would surely have scotched the deal that allowed Russia to acquire our uranium. And then they quietly brought the case about 4 years later, probably right as the statute of limitations was about to run on some of the major crimes in the case. But mainly because by then it was clear that the Russian reset strategy of the Obama administration was a failure once Russia annexed Crimea and was about to invade Ukraine. And at that point, they finally brought the case. But they brought it, as you can imagine, a case like this in the Justice Department is one of these things that they celebrate with press conferences and all the bells and whistles that go with that and the big high-profile prosecutions. Here, they did everything under the radar. They took, they pled the case out. They allowed the pleas to be announced just before Labor Day. They arranged that sentencing would take place just before Christmas. Nothing got publicized. And as I point out in the column that you're kind enough to mention, they basically pled the case out for a song. I don't want to get too deep in the legal weeds of this, but they did it in a way. Otherwise. Yeah, I mean, they did it. They basically did a minor conspiracy count for what was a major conspiracy prosecution, and they obviously thought no one would ever look into it.
So this Committee on Foreign Investment of the United States, CFIUS, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, they had to ultimately sign off on this. It required approval from both. And people have to understand that this Russian company began buying up shares of Uranium One in 2009. Of course, that was right after Obama came into power. And eventually they moved for this majority stake in 2010. Now, one would think that just on its face, just on the surface, this would be something we never allowed. See, Andy, I just look at things as like a pragmatic person. I try to be pragmatic when I look at these political issues. Forget politics, forget right, left. All these people who are spending all this time on Russia collusion, Trump, Russia collusion, Trump, they obviously must believe that Russia is a significant adversary, enemy of the United States. Where were all those people when this was happening? If indeed Russia is an adversary or an enemy of the United States, and such a serious one, why would we ever allow a Russian interest to buy such a significant stake in a uranium interest that we would control, at least that would be housed in the United States? Why would we ever do that?
Well, Laura, I think people like you and me have been aware of and out front on the idea of Russia being a hostile foreign power, but that was not the tune that the Democrats were playing through the first and into the second Obama term. So, we all famously remember in 2012 Obama mocking Mitt Romney for saying that Russia was our biggest geopolitical competitor. They were taking the position back then, that Russia was kind of like Great Britain. They were just another country in the world that we can be strategic allies with, and that we can have.
Right. And we also, Andy, not to interrupt, but we're limited time here. We also remember, of course, in the 2012 election cycle, Barack Obama telling Dmitry Medvedev, "All right, give me a little more flexibility. I'll have more flexibility after the election." Tell Vladimir that. I mean, this is a joke. Right. By the way, Hillary Clinton has made a comment about this Uranium One deal. Let's listen.
I would say it's the same baloney they've been peddling for years, and there's been no credible evidence by anyone. In fact, it's been debunked. Trump and his allies, including Fox News, are really experts at distraction and diversion. I'm their favorite target, me and, President Obama. We're the ones that they always like to put into the crosshairs.
Your reaction, then we'll close it out, Andy.
Who debunked it? It's debunked. These guys took guilty pleas, and there's now there's absolutely no doubt that this was known to the Justice Department. You mentioned CFIUS, that committee, Laura. Both Mrs. Clinton, who was getting lots of money from Russia, and Eric Holder, who was presiding over the investigation at the time, were aware of it, were on CFIUS, and let the deal go through. So I don't know what she's talking about debunked.
Well, the only thing that was missing in her comment was, and there's a vast right-wing conspiracy set against my husband's administration. That's the only thing we didn't hear from her. But you realize there's a different version of that comment that we've heard from the Clintons for the last, 20 years, 25 years? I mean, this has been 21 years. It's been just going, it's a vast right-wing conspiracy. There's never any fire where there's smoke, yet every allegation against Donald Trump has to be correct without anything from Bob Mueller. By the way, and do we know anything more about Mueller at this point, Andy? Are you hearing any reports out of that grand jury other than Sean Spicer spent time with the investigators?
No, there's a report that he's actually looking into Podesta's brother, which is interesting. The other interesting thing here, Laura, is that Mueller and the guy who appointed him, Rosenstein, were deeply involved in this investigation that the Justice Department knew about at the time that the Russian deal went forward. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah. Mueller was head of the FBI, and Rosenstein was the U.S. attorney in the district where the case was being investigated.
Oh, my God. It's the tentacles of this thing just continue to...
The plea deal was signed off on by Andrew Weissman, or lawyers who were working for him. Weissman is now basically the lead lawyer in Mueller's investigation of Trump. So the whole thing is just quite interesting.
This is just, you can't even make this up. This is just gets better and better and better. Is Lanny Davis involved or Webb Hubble involved? I mean, let's get all the old characters back. Andy McCarthy, it's great to talk to you as always. Thanks for your piece. It's terrific. I tweeted it out. Always follow me at Ingraham Angle on Twitter, Facebook, of course, lauraingraham.com. We have all these pieces up. All the latest is up on the website. Of course, the tour will continue. We're going to pick it back up in November at the Reagan Library. We're adding tour dates, but it's going to be after the television show starts. A week from today on the Fox News Channel, the Ingraham Angle, debuting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Stay with us. That's Maxine Waters, who is a paragon of poise and equanimity, and I think she's competing now with Frederica Wilson to be the lead of the impeach Trump movement. I mean, they each want to be the leader of this movement. And they're kind of competing with each other. Maybe they're canceling each other out. I've noticed that Frederica Wilson has changed hats again. How many hats does she have? Does she get those as gifts? It reminds me of Madeleine Albright always wore those different brooches. So Albright had the brooches and Frederica Wilson has the hats. But again, this is all silliness. I wonder if the lamestream media would have had a problem with a conservative female congresswoman saying that she was going to take Obama out. Do you think they might have had a problem with that? Do you think they might have had a problem with how vitriolic and it's almost violence-inducing? It's almost encouraging a violent uprising against Donald Trump. I'm going to take him out. That's where James plays the short. I'm going to take him out. Well, because of Steve Scalise. Now, think of what happened to Steve Scalise. He still can't walk. But we're going to celebrate Maxine Waters. She gets standing ovations wherever she speaks. I'm going to take Trump out. Is that what President Bush and President Obama was speaking about last week when they said, oh, the politics have gotten so coarsened. It's all coarsened. Well, they were talking about Donald Trump, of course. They never raise a peep about people like Waters and many others like her. They praise her. She gets a high five when she says stuff like that. But Bush never came out when these things were said. Never heard from President Bush. Too bad. Is that the type of casual cruelty that George W. Bush was railing against last week? To the accolades and cheers of the lamestream media. So that was Hillary Clinton over the weekend on a book tour that apparently never ends. Her book tour has been going on for how long? Like 2 months? This is like Cher's farewell tour. She always says it's her last tour. Never ends. Cher's still doing her retirement tour. This is Hillary. She's just never going to leave the scene. But think about this. She's doing is this some foreign radio show? What was she even on, James?
Oh, she was on the Graham Norton show. It was a late night in the UK, late night show in the UK.
She's basically going on like ham radio to. I mean, he could have a big show for all I know, but you get my point. Like she'll go on any show. She'll never stop doing television or radio to promote this lousy book of hers. Okay? But think about this. She's describing the scene at the inaugural. Now, I was sitting up on the riser. I was maybe 30 yards from them, Inauguration Day. So I was up on the riser. I was looking down, and I was. Remember when George W. Bush had to wrestle with his poncho? He couldn't get it over his head. He was confused about where the head was. Remember that? He was like, "Rrr," like crazy, wrestling with it. It's like the attack of the poncho. So he's sitting there, and just as I write in Billionaire at the Barricades, he's colluding with Hillary against the people. That's some weird, you know what? That's so. You hear that, Hillary? That's some weird horse hockey.
We've seen our discourse degraded by casual cruelty.
Well, maybe he should look in the mirror. It's kind of cruel during the president's inaugural for you to be whispering to the woman who helped wage what was described as the most venal attack on conservatives with their whole war on women mentality that, oh, you're racist if you believe in immigration reform that includes any type of enforcement. Casual cruelty. Hillary Clinton talked about the basket of deplorables. Did George W. Bush ever come out when she said it's a basket of deplorables and irredeemables? Gosh, we could have used George Bush's help during Obamacare when they were passing that. We could have used George W. Bush's help when they were ridiculing the Tea Party. We could have used George W. Bush's help when they were screwing our country up with this nightmare spending with the stimulus. We could have used George W. Bush's help when they were lying about Benghazi. They lied after Americans died in Benghazi, and George W. Bush didn't say one word. But Donald Trump's been in office for 10 months. Hey, Donald Trump was in office for, 4 minutes after he was sworn in? He gives his speech, and he's already criticizing him. I'll tell you what dark is, President Bush. You know what dark is? Dark is leaving office with $19 trillion or whatever. No, excuse me. But when she left office, it was almost $10 trillion. But that's sick, doubling the debt. It was 19 when Obama left office. What's sick is 6,300 of our bravest killed in Iraq and Afghanistan in 2 wars that we're still fighting in one way or another, through proxies or ourselves. What's sick is losing the House of Representatives, the Senate, and then paving the way for Barack Obama to be president. That's a cruel, sick joke.
Argument turns too easily into animosity.
But he's whispering to his old pal Hillary Clinton. Does any of this surprise you? Remember at CPAC a few years back, I said that Jeb and Hillary should run on the same ticket. It should be called Clush 2016. What difference does it make? This is precisely what I was talking about. The old guard doesn't want the Trump disruption. They don't want him in office because he held up a mirror to their failures. Everybody's cards are now on the table. The good thing about this is at least there is no doubt in anyone's mind where the Bushes are. The Bushes are closer to the Clintons and the Obamas than to the grassroots of the Republican Party. True or false? You know, if you've started my book, if you've read my book, you know where I am on this. True or false? The Bushes are closer to the Obamas and Clintons than they are to the grassroots of the Republican Party. 855-40-LAURA. True or false? If you think I'm being unfair, uncharitable to the Bushes, then I'm happy to hear from you on that. And it pains me to say this because personally I actually like George W. Bush. I think he is a patriot. I think he loves the country. But he's not a populist conservative. He grew government. He expanded our debt. Our trade deficit ballooned. And for all the thought about exporting democracy abroad, and we don't want to be isolationist. Can't be isolationist. Casual cruelty. Isolationist, casual cruelty. Think about this for a moment. All of these people talking about the need, Bill Kristol, all the neoconservatives, George Bush, all these people, they want to expand and export democracy. Why don't they ever talk about China? When are they ever giving major speeches about the persecution of religious minorities, any religion, frankly, real religion, Christianity, of course, in China, political prisoners, no First Amendment, the shutting down of major internet sites, search engines, forget about it. There is no meaningful right to protest in China. And if you're a Christian, you have to be state sanctioned. You have to be approved by the Chinese Communist government. Is there? I mean, I think George W. Bush has been more critical of Donald Trump than he has been critical of China. No doubt about that. True or false? The Bushes and the Clintons. Well, I just say the Bushes have more in common with the Clintons and Obamas than they do with the grassroots of the Republican Party. 855-40-LAURA. The Billionaire at the Barricades tour continues here in West Palm Beach. We'll be doing a great event today at the Forum Club, and I'm broadcasting here at our wonderful affiliate. I haven't been here in a while. It's great to be back. 850 WFTL, and it's our terrific station here in West Palm. Love the folks, love being on here, love being heard in Southeast Florida. It's just such a beautiful part of the country, and it was nice to land here yesterday. We had a little bit of a delay, but traveling on Sundays, for some reason, I always have a problem on Sundays. Oh, should we tell the story? Okay, when we come back, you know what? I'll tell it when we come back. When we get your true or false answers, okay, 855-40-LAURA. I've asked the question 3 times. Ask it one more time. Do the Bushes have more in common with the Obamas and the Clintons than they do the grassroots of the GOP? Okay, 855-40-LAURA. True or false? Okay, when we come back, what we overheard and witnessed on a JetBlue flight from Washington to Fort Lauderdale last night. 855-40-LAURA. Travel horror stories continue. Don't go away.
You guys hear me from time to time talk about how I've had trouble sleeping in the past. Pillows will go flat, and then you end up tossing and turning all night long. You wake up with a sore neck. It's horrible. My friends, when I changed and started using MyPillow, I started almost immediately sleeping better. MyPillow gets me to sleep and more deeply and faster than when I use the old traditional pillows. MyPillow is manufactured right here in the United States, and it comes with a 10-year warranty. You can wash and dry MyPillow, and the best part is you get a 60-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. Right now, my friends at MyPillow have come up with their best offer ever. Go to MyPillow.com or call 800-385-5164 and use promo code LAURA, and you'll take advantage of 50% off MyPillow's 4-pack special. And now when you order, MyPillow is going to give you free shipping as well. Go again to MyPillow.com or call 800-385-5164 and use the promo code LAURA. Take advantage of the 50% off MyPillow's 4-pack special. Don't delay. Order now.
This is your last chance for the Genucel warehouse clearance sale from Chamonix. Only 2 more weeks. You get double your order of Genucel free. I traveled with it. I have it with me in beautiful West Palm Beach, and I wouldn't go out of the house without it if I was going any length of time. And it's a natural plant stem cell treatment. It has advanced peptides. Those annoying little lines, bags, puffiness under the eyes. You don't want those. At least you can minimize the effects. Why not do it? Genucel is just amazing. Results are fast. You'll see what I mean once you start using it. So call now. Get double your order of Genucel. And I use it. I love it. It's backed by the best customer service in the business and an ironclad 60-day, 100% money-back guarantee. And I remember, when during the campaign, when so many people were running away from Donald Trump, the Never-Trumpers were out there saying he should never be the nominee and we're going to leave the party and so forth. I remember Bob Dole supporting Donald Trump. And Bob Dole, he didn't hesitate to support Trump. So is this a generational divide to some extent that we're seeing? The old, when I say old guard, I mean the old political guard passing away. And the dynastic duo of the Obamas, the Clintons and the Bushes. They're the 2 dynasties in politics today. The Kennedys, not so much anymore, but it's really the Clintons and the Bushes aligning together to criticize Donald Trump 10 months into his presidency on the same day. And Carter comes along and says, I've never seen anything like this. He's 93. I was looking at that photo of all the former presidents at that Las Vegas concert. We didn't need to see Lady Gaga in the photo. What was that all about? Byron York tweeted out a question. He's like, how did that come to be? It's good for Lady Gaga. I don't blame her for wanting to be in the photo. And you know what I say to her? Nice going showing up at this, as not that many did. Who are all the country music performers have been doing a lot for Las Vegas. But, there's not exactly a big turnout of the huge pop stars of today. But Lady Gaga shows up. I think she wrote $1 million check or to Houston. She's done a lot. So I think that was good of her. But you look at that photo. Jimmy Carter is unbelievable. He's 93. And I don't think he doesn't look like he's really aged in the last 10 or 15 years. He looks the same as he's looked in 10 or 15 years. And George W. Bush looked good. Obama looked like he always looks like he's having fun. He's always thin and in shape. And Bill Clinton, well, he's Bill Clinton. But there are 5 former presidents. That's incredible. And HW, of course, is in the wheelchair. He's struggling. But it was nice to see everybody there. And I think the call for unity is great. I don't think there's nothing wrong. Of course we want to be unified. But when we say that, what do we mean? We want to be unified in supporting our fellow Americans who are suffering from loss, who are, deeply, deeply saddened and grieving, whether it's a natural disaster or this horrific shooting in Las Vegas. So we unite around the flag, around the anthem, at least we thought. But the idea that you just say we're going to unite, we're not going to have any substantive arguments about immigration, trade, spending, taxes, travel bans. We always debate. I mean, you name me a time when the United States was, quote, united around a political issue. That's the nature of politics. It's the nature of being a representative democracy. 855-40-LAURA. Coming up, we're going to talk to the head of the Republican National Committee, Ronna Romney McDaniel. I always ask her, what's the number one concern that donors have, small donors? They send letters out. Oftentimes people write on the envelope. They write back. Maybe they'll give money, maybe they won't. Like pass Obamacare repeal or get tax reform done or build the wall. What is it? What do you want the Republican Party to do most right now? And do you think being united is realistic, given the fact that we can't even unite around our anthem anymore? What does that mean to be united? I say, remember the Bible. Jesus came not to unite us, but to divide us. What does that mean? Stand up for your issues, what you care about, and try to elect people who advance your agenda. That's what the people did with Donald J. Trump. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get to that. All your calls. The Bushes and the Clintons closer together than the Bushes are to the grassroots of the GOP. Some of those old school home security systems, they maybe have been in your home for some time and you pay your bills every month and you think, oh, this is keeping me safe. Well, do you know that a lot of police officers, a lot of people in law enforcement don't trust these systems? They're easily disarmed and they're easily thwarted. And that's why a lot of folks in law enforcement, other Americans, opt for having their own look at their own homes when they're not there. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Blink Home Security. And a lot of police going with Blink Home Security. Why? Because they're discreet, they're super affordable, and they're video cameras that you install yourself in just minutes. They're wire-free, they run on 2 batteries, they last 2 years. Now, Blinks go inside and outside, and they're motion activated, so they're always on duty. So the instant Blink detects something, it sends a video alert to my smartphone. And basically, Blink helps stop crime before it happens. And Blink's live feed option lets me monitor my home from my smartphone. It's awesome. So you don't have to worry if the kids are home safe or the doors are locked. Blink helps you. So you check out this deal I have for you. Get 3 Blink cams, what the other guys charge for just 1. Just go to blinkprotect.com/Laura. You order now and you can get an extra 10% off. That's blinkprotect.com/Laura. blinkprotect.com/Laura. You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Donald Trump versus everybody? Sometimes it seems that way, doesn't it? That he doesn't have any allies. But I don't think that's a simplistic way of looking at it. He has allies in the grassroots of the Republican Party and in that working class that, in my mind, represents the lifeblood of America. You see, most people want him to succeed. Now, we fill our airwaves with the detractors and the resistance and, oh, he doesn't care about the troops, he doesn't know people's names, it's this, it's that, it's a tweet, it's a fight with Corker. Here's the question. Is the country going in the right direction, or is it going in the wrong direction? And I would say, just focusing on the economy for a moment, even without congressional action to repeal Obamacare that would have helped us enormously, helped businesses, saved us $800 billion over 10 years, even without that, the economy is soaring. business confidence, consumer confidence, unemployment, budget getting passed, and it looks like we're going to do tax reform, although I have some issues with that. We'll get into that. We have the trade deficit declining. China's on the move, and we talked about what they're doing in the electric car category. Two huge stories in the Wall Street Journal. One about Tesla wanting to start production in China and what that's going to mean to the electric car manufacturing in the United States. We have that issue. Tesla gets $4.8 billion overall for all of Elon Musk companies. Get a lot of money from the taxpayers, the tax breaks. They get a lot of money. And it turns out now they're going to be moving more operations overseas. Okay, well, I guess we can further help China because that's going to make China richer. But we got all these big issues happening, but we got a trade rep who's on this issue. I talked about that, how we're finally doing the investigatory work we need to do, investigative work on the trade front vis-a-vis China and other trade cheaters and market manipulators. Thank God we have Bob Lighthizer, and thank God we have Wilbur Ross and so many others who are working without any recognition to protect America's manufacturing base and to frankly bring it back. Gets very little coverage. I'm going to cover it. And a week from today, the Ingraham Angle launches on Fox News, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific time. And I want you to set your DVRs and make sure you don't miss an episode because we're going to be hitting these issues that frankly don't get a lot of coverage. And we're not going to chase the shiny object of the moment that is hung out there by the lamestream media for us to, oh, well, let's talk about the phone call. Donald Trump doesn't care about the widow or the fallen soldier. Of course he does. His heart breaks just like all of our hearts break when we lose men and women in uniform. And we're not going to fall for your demonization tactics any longer. We're not going to do it. Joining us now, I'm delighted she's with us, Ronna Romney McDaniel, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. She joins us now. Ronna, great to talk to you again. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always good to be here.
Ronna, you heard my point here about what the American media have done to try to poison the Trump agenda. Even Jimmy Carter over the weekend tells Maureen Dowd of the New York Times that he's never seen anything like this. And that the coverage has been way over the top, and even then made a comment about how there's no evidence of any Russia collusion. And he at 93 seems to have more of a clear sense of what needs to be discussed, all these substantive issues in the United States.
Absolutely. You know, I saw this during the campaign, too, where the media would cover the personality and not focus on the substance and the policy, which Republicans care about. And they did it to their detriment because Donald Trump talked about fair trade. He talked about bringing jobs. He talked about cutting taxes. He talked about infrastructure. He talked about immigration. Those are things that resonated in my state of Michigan. It's resonating still across the country. And somehow the media wants to focus on the story of the day instead of the substance of what's happening in Washington, and a lot's gotten done under President Trump. And when I go to Michigan or New Hampshire or Ohio or Indiana, they see it. The voters are so smart. They see that our country's on the right track. And even in our mail, which I always check for you, what are our people saying, our donors, our small dollar donors? They're saying we want Congress to enact President Trump's agenda.
So that's a consistent theme that you're seeing in return envelopes, written on the envelopes, notes to you, emails, pass the Trump agenda.
Pass the Trump agenda. Every time we see that, they want to see tax cuts. They do want to see repeal and replace. They want to see immigration reform. They want to see all those things. But right now, it's mostly the tax cuts. They really want to see this get approved, and they have confidence in the president. And we see that at the RNC because we're getting the bulk of the small dollar donations because the president has been so supportive of the party, understanding that we're the infrastructure towards 2018. We've had record fundraising. Over 98% of our donations have been small dollar donations of $200 or less. That shows that the president's base is still with him. And they see that the media is so against him. In fact, they're more locked in now than they were because, and you hear this, I'm sure, when I travel, people say, this is ridiculous. He is attacked
Oh,
every
they don't
day.
even care.
My
Yeah.
mom said to me, he can't do anything right. If he solved world peace, they'd say, oh, he just hurt our military. I mean, there's just nothing he can do right, according to the media, and it's over the top every day. And the average American person is smarter than that. We see through it, and we listen to your show, so we get the real news.
Well, I appreciate that, and I was wondering your reaction last week when on the same day, seemingly coordinated, but who knows, we have two former presidents come out and, without mentioning him by name, attacking Donald Trump. George W. Bush, who for 8 years was silent during Benghazi, during the Obamacare disaster, during any given demonization of the American electorate, the deplorables comment, clinging to guns and religion comment, ridiculing the Tea Party, ridiculing talk radio, raising the race issue in the most rank manner. George W. Bush didn't speak out. But last week, lo and behold, he comes out and, without mentioning by name, criticizing Trump. What was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I just wish we'd have had leaders coming out in January when 60 congressional members boycotted the inauguration and people were putting out the hashtag not my president and speaking then and saying, we need to rally behind our commander-in-chief. We want him to succeed. Our country's more important than our party. And he just hasn't had that. This president has faced such obstruction, and really leaders from both parties have not stepped forward and said, we need to unify around our president. Just like I had the benefit when I was president of having people unify around me. And instead, they continue to double down on division. And it's not helping our country, and it's not helping our president, and it's certainly not helping the American people who are hoping for change because they're hurting because of the failure of Barack Obama and his presidency.
Well, and I love how over the weekend, it was nice to have the message of unity with the presidents in Las Vegas, but boy, when we needed unity, as you just pointed out at the inauguration, instead we hear Hillary Clinton joking on a foreign radio show that she was on. She never ends that book tour, by the way, Rana. That book tour it's like the never ending going out of business sale for any various Oriental rug store in Washington D.C. They're always going out of business, but it never ends.
I know.
So
she's
Hillary Clinton
finally
said,
going to make it to Michigan. She's
yeah,
finally
exactly.
going to make it to Michigan.
That's actually really funny.
She's coming this week.
Now, yeah. I didn't even think about that joke. That's really good. Maybe she'll finally make it to Wisconsin. So she's on this show and she's joking. She's joking, Rana, about how, well, I was on the platform during the inauguration and George W. Bush looked at me and whispered, "This is some weird blank, SH blank blank." And I thought to myself, oh, this is part of the reason why Trump won, because they think the old bipartisan cabal is aligned against the conservative populist agenda. And they will laugh and ridicule Trump. And when you're ridiculing Trump, you're really ridiculing his grassroots, the people who write checks to the RNC. Maybe they're $25, $50, $100 checks. But you see, when you ridicule Trump as that's weird, dark blank, as she quoted George W. Bush as saying, then people feel that. They feel like it's an attack on them, not just an attack on the president.
You're exactly right. It feels like a personal attack. And here's what I see. Nobody seems to be learning on the left from the lessons of this election. They still look down on the Trump voter as either uneducated or angry or racist or whatever. We're still those deplorables. And there isn't a recognition that the left, the Democrat Party has gone so far left, so far progressive, they really only represent the elite coastal, redistributionist, status quo, big government, and they've lost the middle of the country. And the middle of the country looked at President Trump and they said, finally somebody who's fighting for hardworking Americans, who recognizes our wages have been stagnant, who recognizes that jobs aren't coming to this country because we're engaging in bad trade, who's recognizing that we don't have lobbyists on our behalf in Washington, D.C. And President Trump represented all of that to the middle of the country. And these are good, hardworking, patriotic people who were looking for help. And Democrats still continue to insult them every single day through President Trump. And by extension, like you said, they're insulting every single voter that voted for President Trump.
How important is it to get tax reform done? this year?
It's critical. It is critical because we're being judged right now as a party because we have the Senate and the House and the White House. Even though it's a slim margin in the Senate, we are being judged. Can you govern when you're given the majority? And while I'm going to say to people, don't give up, we've got to stick in no matter what happens because 2018 is the best map we've seen in 70 years. I do feel like it will pull some of the air out of the balloon and be discouraging for our voters. We need it not only to kickstart our economy, but also to give our voters a reason to come back and put us in the majority in 2018.
Well, I think we should want to be held accountable. The Republicans should want to be held accountable. They're the party of personal accountability, personal responsibility. So you can't very well ask for that from the electorate, from the citizenry, and not be subject to it yourself, the same standard. Ronna, we really appreciate your joining us. Ronna Romney McDaniel, chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. She always gives us the latest on what the donors are saying, what the small donors are saying, what they want. They want the Trump agenda passed. We appreciate it. We'll take a break. We'll close out this hour on the Laura Ingraham Show. Mitch McConnell takes on Steve Bannon again. I'm going to tell you what that's really all about when we come back. It's better than being called a white nationalist, I guess. The element. This element has been out there. Do you consider yourselves to be an element? I think it's people. It's voters. Just like there are people who support the Chamber of Commerce and everything they do, and those are usually a lot of big donors. But Steve Bannon is just one person. Yeah, I was just one person helping Dave Bratt, along with a handful of others. We're just a few people, and we helped bring a different voice to the fore and give people platforms. I mean, that's where we were. That's how things happen. That's how things go in American society, where we have different political views. I mean, Mitch McConnell believes that we should just keep going the old way. We should keep going the way that we went with George W. Bush. That we should have big trade deals and we should have open borders and none of this stuff mattered, and we should just don't worry about doing regular order budgeting. And Steve Bannon thinks the Trump agenda is going to be the best agenda for the future. I happen to agree with him. Doesn't mean that you have to pick good candidates. So Mitch McConnell's right about that, but they certainly had a couple of great candidates. We had Dave Bratt, we had Roy Moore, and more to come. You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show.